Absolutely. Here's the next entry in your growing saga. A long, cinematic, continuous story titled as requested. Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man vs. Bad Guys, Part 1. The city of New York never slept, but that didn't mean Peter Parker got to rest either. His days were a blur of lectures, late-night photography, and web-slinging across rooftops. Always one heartbeat away from chaos. Midtown High's halls were filled with the chatter of exams and social drama, but Peter's mind was rarely on algebra or chemistry. Instead, he found his focus split between his studies, his work at the Daily Bugle, and his new part-time position as a lab assistant for two brilliant men who represented the best of science. Dr. Otto Octavius at Oscorp Laboratories, and Dr. Kirk Connors, his biology teacher at Midtown. Dr. Connors was kind and encouraging, a man whose missing arm never seemed to dampen his spirit. He taught his students that science could be the key to human improvement, that knowledge could heal as much as it could create. Otto, on the other hand, was something else entirely. Brilliant, intense, driven to the point of obsession, he believed in pushing the limits of human capability. Peter admired both men, though a small, uneasy part of him sensed that Otto's ambition burned a little too hot. Still, in their labs, surrounded by microscopes, vials, and the hum of machines, Peter felt almost normal. Almost. It was on one of those evenings, after finishing a round of photo editing at the Bugle, that Peter's life once again took a sharp turn. Jameson had been yelling about missed headlines and front-page photos when a police scanner in the corner of the newsroom crackled to life. All units, 1031 in progress, Manhattan Savings Bank, possible armed robbery in progress. Peter didn't need another word. He was out the door in seconds. The next moment, the quiet night erupted into the sound of sirens and distant shouts as Spider-Man swung between the buildings, his camera tucked safely in his bag. Below, flashing lights painted the streets red and blue as police surrounded the bank. He landed silently on a lamppost overlooking the scene, eyes scanning for movement. Inside, the robbers were no ordinary criminals. They moved with military precision, cutting through vault doors as though they'd done this before. But what caught Spider-Man's attention wasn't the men, it was the shadow above them. A dark shape swooped through the air, gliding silently on mechanical wings that shimmered like a hawk's in the light of the vault lamps. The figure descended, green feathers of metal catching the glow. The Vulture. Spider-Man watched in awe as the winged man tore the safe door clean off its hinges. "You boys did the hard part," Vulture hissed, voice thin and rasping through a rebreather mask. "But I'll be taking the treasure." The robbers protested, but he lashed out with metallic talons, scattering them like leaves. That was Peter's cue. "Sorry, Birdbrain," Spider-Man quipped as he dropped from the ceiling, firing webs that stuck to the Vulture's wings. "But this nest is closed for renovations." Vulture snarled, snapping the webbing with one furious flap. "You think you can stop me, boy? I built these wings with my own two hands. I soar where men crawl." He charged upward, glass shattering as he shot through the ceiling. Spider-Man followed, swinging after him into the night sky. They clashed above the streets, claws against web, wings slicing through the air with precision. Vulture dove, slamming Spider-Man into a billboard before pulling up at the last second. Spider-Man fired more webbing, tangling the villain's left wing. "You should really try flying economy," he joked, yanking downward. Vulture spun out, crashing onto a rooftop where police quickly surrounded him. Spider-Man landed beside the wreckage, panting, watching as officers cuffed the dazed criminal. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, an alarm blared from another corner of the city. Another robbery. 2 in one night. His spider sense tingled like wildfire as he turned, swinging toward the sound. This time, it wasn't Vulture. A sleek figure dressed in black leather slipped through the shadows of another bank across town. The moonlight caught the glint of silver hair beneath her hood, and emerald eyes flashed as she cracked a safe with elegance and grace. The Black Cat. Spider-Man landed on the ceiling above her, quietly watching. "You know," he said, hanging upside down, "most people just open a savings account." She smirked, not even startled. "Spider-Man, right? I've heard of you, but I don't like to share." She flipped backward, landing lightly on a desk as he fired a web her way. She dodged effortlessly, laughing. "You'll have to be quicker than that." They danced across the room, her movements feline and fluid, his webbing barely missing as she leapt and twisted with acrobatic precision. Every attempt to trap her ended with her cutting the webbing with sharpened claws or flipping gracefully out of reach. Finally, she blew him a teasing kiss before smashing through a window and disappearing into the night. Spider-Man stood there, stunned and half annoyed, as the police stormed in too late. "Great," he muttered. "A bird, a cat, and all I got was this broken window." The next morning, the city buzzed with headlines. Spider-Man's sky battle with winged menace, and Black Cat vanishes with diamonds, filled the front pages. Jameson ranted for hours, declaring that Spider-Man was clearly in league with the criminals he fought. Peter just sighed, cashed his meager paycheck, and headed to school. But his reprieve didn't last. That afternoon, as students poured out of Midtown High, a sound like a thunderclap shook the streets. Peter's head snapped toward the noise, just as a massive figure charged down the avenue, scattering cars like toys. The Rhino, a hulking brute encased in nearly indestructible armor, roared with primal fury, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "Where's Spider-Man?" he bellowed, smashing through a bus stop. Peter ducked into an alley, changing into his suit in seconds. The moment he emerged, Rhino charged, the ground trembling beneath his feet. Spider-Man leaped high, landing on the villain's back and driving both web shooters into his armor. "I've heard of bullfighting," he shouted, "but this is ridiculous." Rhino swung wildly, smashing lampposts as Spider-Man clung to his horned head, trying to slow him down. Finally, Peter lured him toward a construction site, dodging between steel beams until Rhino's momentum worked against him. The brute slammed headfirst into a cement mixer, the wet concrete pouring over him in a thick, gray wave. Spider-Man sealed it with webbing, trapping the creature in a hardened shell. "Guess you could say you're in a bit of a bind," he quipped as police sirens approached. By nightfall, the city was buzzing again. Spider-Man had faced 3 new enemies in 2 days, and every encounter left him more exhausted than the last. But elsewhere, in the high towers of the city, someone was taking notice. In a dark, glass-walled office overlooking the skyline, a man in a white suit stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The Kingpin. His broad shoulders filled the room, his eyes cold and calculating as an underling placed photos of Spider-Man before him. "This one's becoming a problem," Kingpin said quietly. "He disrupts operations, interferes with business. I want him gone." A voice from the corner spoke. "And how much are you offering?" Kingpin turned. The man who stepped forward was lean, dangerous, and eager. "Name's Gargan," he said. "Mac Gargan. I'll take the job." Kingpin smiled faintly. "You'll be more than a man when I'm finished with you, Gargan. You'll be a weapon. You'll be the Scorpion." And as his men led Gargan away to begin his transformation, the city outside glowed unaware of what was coming. In the quiet that followed, 2 separate lights flickered in laboratories across town. In one, Dr. Otto Octavius stood before a table of gleaming metal arms, their claws twitching with life, their wiring coiled like serpents. He smiled, whispering to himself about progress, control, and the merging of man and machine. In another, Dr. Kirk Connors adjusted his glasses as he carefully examined a vial of green serum. "If I can replicate the regenerative properties of reptile DNA," he murmured, "I can restore what was lost." He glanced at the empty sleeve where his arm once was. "I can be whole again." The hum of science filled the air. The future loomed dark and inevitable, and somewhere high above the glittering city, Spider-Man swung through the night, unaware of the storm that was gathering beneath him. Would you like me to write part 2 next, where Scorpion's transformation